You're listening to Catalyst for Change, and my name is Jessica Huckabee, your host. I started this podcast to learn what makes people resilient after challenging events and how they've used those series of events as a catalyst for change in their life. You'll hear stories of resiliency and strength, so get ready, sit back, and be prepared to be inspired. In this episode, we speak about the gender spectrum. We discuss how we can be open and accepting of people in our community who may identify as transgender or transitioning, how to educate ourselves, the challenges transgender people may face, and how to step outside the box. So today, our guest is Summer Selleck. Summer is a solo practitioner at Selleck Law in Walnut Creek, California. Summer practices primarily in the areas of estate planning, probate, will and trust litigation, and elder law. Summer's deep passion is protecting and advocating for the rights of diverse classes, and she is deeply involved in her community while continuing to build her corporation. Summer works to promote tolerance and diversity in both the legal profession and the community, and is impacting the lives of others through community engagement and outreach campaigns designed to build relationships, educate the community, and create a broader social impact. Thank you, Summer, for coming on my show, Catalyst for Change Stories. Tell me more about an event that really shaped the person you are today.
Well, Jessica, I think it's not just one event as much as sort of a progression of time. So in 2018, I had my partner and I had our daughter. Her name's Merritt. She's 3 years old now. And she sort of kicked off this rapid period of growth. We had her in January, and then I'm an attorney and I run my own practice. And in July, I was coming out of court on the second floor of the court building in Contra, Costa County, and I took a misstep and I fell down 15 stairs on my head. And I, unfortunately, I'm kind of klutzy, so I do things like that. So my first response was just to sort of jump up and be like, I'm okay. But the process was really humbling because I didn't realize how badly I had hurt myself when I got to the bottom of the stairs. And so I ended up having to take some time off of work. And this was all with a new child. And the process was just really humbling to not be able to use my brain in the way that I had. I had word choice issues, and I would forget things. And basically, I had to sort of take a long, hard look at my life and the choices I had made up until this point, and sort of figure out, what I wanted to do. I had 6 weeks off from work, so I had a lot of time to think. And if you know anything about concussions,
Oh yeah,
which I know you do, you can't watch television, can't be on social media. You're supposed to just sort of rest your brain, rest everything. And so that was sobering in the sense that, I was go, 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 go ever since, I started my law practice. And it was just a real change. That happened in 2018. And in 2019, my partner and I, at the time, we had a chat where we finally came to a point where it was decided, or it was allowed for me to sort of transition into the person that I had always felt like I was. I've always felt as though I'm gender non-binary. And so my wife and I made the conscious decision to allow me to start moving down that process. And so I feel like all of those things sort of came together to create this sort of calamity in my life, but also a lot of growth. And I think that's really, since 2018, I've been on testosterone, dealing with that process. And so it's been a couple of interesting years.
Wow, you had a lot of things happen in such a short amount of time. So you adopted a new daughter. So is adoption, you
No,
said?
no. My wife carried Merritt.
Okay.
Yeah, no
Okay, so
adoption.
you had a new daughter in your family in
Mhm.
2018, and congratulations. I know
Thank
my
you.
daughter is the same age. So I
Oh,
understand that
then you get it.
that
It's a lot.
stress and that struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they are a lot of work, but they're such wonderful little beings.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really wonderful. And then you fell on the court steps right when you had a new baby to take care of and you had all this
Yeah.
stuff going on in your life. But that was really, you're telling me that was really, that traumatic brain injury or concussion, as some people call it, based on severity. So mild traumatic brain injury is the same thing as a concussion, and they're scaled from mild to severe. So did they tell you what kind you had?
Yeah, I had a severe,
A
I had a
severe,
severe, yeah,
severe brain injury. Okay.
yeah,
That is a lot to handle. That is, I
yeah,
mean, that is a lot. So, but that you used that situation that was really trying and, very challenging, it sounds like, to kind of think through things, figure out who you were. And you realize that, you're non-binary. You want to go through with those additional changes that you needed to do in order to become who you actually are. And
mhm.
so that's just amazing. So tell me about that process.
So yeah, I mean, I think that when people have children, they have to sort of really take stock of what they're doing in their life. Like, with a new kid, you sort of see a fresh start in a lot of ways. And so when we got when Merritt came along, I was just like, what am I doing? Am I really genuinely happy in who I
Yeah.
am? And then falling down the stairs, having that sort of 6-week period of just thinking about the person that I've become, and how everything is so quick, and how everything's at our fingertips with technology and what have you. I just came to a place where I was like, I need to be who I am. And so, my wife and I had been talking about it since we got married. We got married in 2013. And I always just kind of figured, I'm not ever going to take the steps in order to feel comfortable in my body, and I'm just gonna, live out this life, doing what I need to do in order to sort of survive. And so my wife ended up calling me in May, and she had read an article about this person who was non-binary and was microdosing testosterone, and she sent it to me. And I read it and I was like, what? You can do that? Like, you don't have to go all in and be either female or male, and you don't have to, be gendered in that way. You can just be your authentic self.
Yeah.
And that was just really, really eye-opening for me, because I had felt like that my entire life, just sort of in between, not really. I've never been girly,
Mm.
never. And I've always sort of scaled more towards the masculine, outward appearance, but I in no way feel masculine. Most of my friends would say I'm probably one of the most sensitive, I guess, if we want to use the word girly, which I don't really know if I
More
do, but
feminine qualities,
yeah,
some
more
kind
feminine
folks say.
qualities. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I always just sort of felt like, a little bit on the outside. And so reading the article, I just remember thinking, oh my God, like, there's something else I can do here. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And
Yeah.
that's really sort of like something that's taken a hold of my life, is that, growing up and living in a society, being a lawyer, we love to categorize things. We love to say it's this or that. It's
Yeah.
it's black or white, it's right or wrong, it's good and evil, whatever, and so having to really dive into that gray area of what do I want this to look like has been really liberating. And it's also had a lot of, really hard moments, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And I, had a very supportive partner. Surprisingly, had a very supportive group of colleagues around me that were, just like, okay, let's do this. So the process started when I started taking testosterone in May, which is a small dose of it, not the full dose. And then I had what we generally call top surgery in July of 2019, which was pretty quick. They had a cancellation. Usually you wait a few months. There was a cancellation with the doctor. The doctor was like, we can do it. And so I jumped on that pretty quickly. And that was another.
Explain? Yeah, just so for people that may not know, what is top surgery?
So I had a double mastectomy. I
Okay.
had that also was like 6 weeks of rehabilitation time, so no working, and it was a pretty brutal surgery, I think, but overall it's been really, really lovely. And it's just been a way to sort of make it so that I feel more okay in the body that I was given, but also in the body that I feel like I should have been given. I did that. And then, every week I take another shot of testosterone and we sort of see where that leads us. I've started growing facial hair and my voice is deepened, and there are some definite external signs that are really noticeable to people, and so that's been a strange experience. But yeah, overall I'm really happy with just sort of allowing myself to be who I want to be.
Yeah.
So
So tell me more about those. You mentioned challenging moments. So tell me a little, do you mind digging into those
oh
a little
no,
bit? Love to
not at
hear
all.
about, because a lot of people listening to this may have these similar questions and they may be feeling the way you are, and they may want to know, how did you get started? What are the challenges you faced?
So first off, just to go back and sort of, and I know that you're going to have somebody on your show that is going to dive in deeper into like what it is to be transgender, and so I don't really feel like I need to do that. But just to clarify, being transgender, it's an umbrella term for anyone who doesn't identify with the sex or gender that they were assigned at birth. So there are numerous different things can qualify as being transgender. And I've talked about one, which is non-binary, and that's individuals with a gender identity that doesn't fit into either one or the other. We're not traditional. I don't feel like I'm a man. I don't feel like I'm a woman. I feel non-binary. So doing that, it's in deciding to make that transition, it's caused a lot of problems because, like I said before, we're in a society that really wants you to fit into a category.
Yeah.
And so, in some ways it would be easier if I was like, oh, I'm a trans man, but I'm not. So teaching the people that are in my life and the people who are on the outskirts of my life that make appearances every now and then, how to interact with me and just sort of the changes that I need for them to make in order to make me feel normal. It's been challenging. So I'm in court most of the time. I'm an attorney, as I said, and I know about 6 months ago, one of my favorite judges, she waited for me to finish my argument, and then she's like, okay, Miss Selleck, can I speak to you in my chambers? Everybody else can go home. So went into her chambers, and she looked at me and she said, are you transitioning? And I was like, yes, I am, thank you for noticing. And she was like, okay, I don't know what to call you. Should I call you Miss? Should I call you Mr.? What do I do here? And I just said to her, you can call me counsel. You can call anyone counsel. Counsel Selleck works perfectly. That was just one of the things that I do on like a daily basis, is just people not knowing how to approach me, talk to me.
How else has it affected things in your career? That's another question I think people would love to hear about.
Yeah.
You're a lawyer, you're public facing, and you have to explain things a lot, I'm sure, to other people that may not understand. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about how the people around you supported you in your career, your coworkers.
So it's been a couple of different types of ways that people have supported me. So, like I said, the judge that called me into her chamber and asked, I was so stoked that she did that, and that she didn't just try to put me into a category or ignore it. So I've been really, really, and from that conversation, I've had all other judges in the county refer to me as counsel. They don't refer to me as Miss Selleck anymore. They don't, so she, although it was a very awkward moment, was super supportive and trying to figure out how to process this. With my colleagues, so I work for myself, but I work in an office with a bunch of other lawyers. And before I started down the process, I sat them down each, I took them to lunch, and I said, look, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to need you to be sort of understanding, and things are going to change. And I need to know if you're able to be supportive or if you're not. And they were all unanimously like, yeah, that's great. And I think it was made easier by the fact that I've always sort of presented a little bit more masculine. But the rest of the county and the lawyers in this county, I work in probate and elder law. So we're a small kind of community in the legal community. And everyone has been really, really wonderful. I'm not of the mind that I have to come out to people or that I have to tell anybody really anything about my gender or my sexuality, because I feel like I'm just who I am, and we should just be able to do that. But with that being said, people have really been super supportive and helpful in, making things less awkward in court. Like when I am being gendered, other counsel will say, oh, you mean counsel Selleck, and things of that nature. So that's been good. As for clients, when I had a client before that would come in, it was usually a certain type of client, meaning they had to have a little bit of liberalism in them in order to be my client, just because, I've always presented as somebody who's probably gay. In this county, that can be a little bit tricky. And so my clientele is usually very, very open and very, very honest with me. So I haven't had any issues there. But additionally, this process really sort of started kicking into gear after COVID came and presented itself. And so I've had a lot of less interaction with clients one-on-one, and I've had a lot of less interaction in court and with the community. And so in a lot of ways, I think that's very lucky for me, because I've been able to sort of do this and wade into who I feel like I am without, having to see everybody on a daily basis and deal with the daily things that probably will come up or would come up. It's not an easy process. It's been hard in the sense that, things are not made for a gender non-conforming person. And I'm not saying that as if I'm a victim. I'm saying that as I am noticing that I am a culprit of using things like, hey guys, and always trying to fit somebody into a gender or a sexuality, and constantly trying to put people into boxes. And the more and more I am stepping out of whatever box I created for myself, the more I'm realizing that it's really hard. It's hard for us not to categorize people. And if it's hard for me, somebody who doesn't want to be categorized so badly, then it must be so difficult for everybody else in society. And so I try to enter into all of my relationships, either professional or social or what have you, with a lot of empathy and understanding that, this is not something that is widely done, especially when, you're already an established lawyer and you already have, you're married and you have a kid and your family. And, I'm 37 years old. And so the process has been really just very strange, considering that there's been so much change so quickly. But I just feel like
You can change it. It sounds like
no.
Yeah, you're where you want to be. You're being who you want to be, it sounds like.
Yeah. And that's really exciting and really fun. But obviously, there's always, a downside with things of that nature too sometimes. So
Yeah. So how can people support somebody who is transitioning or who is non-binary like yourself?
Yeah, so there's lots of things, and I come in contact with different people's approaches on a daily basis. So one of my favorite things to do is to tell people. I mean, this in I'll explain where I'm going with this, but ask people what they want to be referred to as. Obviously, don't say, "Are you a boy? Are you a girl?" Because obviously that's not going to help
Yeah.
anything. But say, what are your pronouns? That's something that a lot of people find really, really hard to do because they think it's offensive, when really the offensive thing would be to call me her or him, and
Mhm.
just assume, you'll see a lot of people recently putting pronouns in their email signatures. And
Yeah.
that's a way to sort of show some allyship and to say, look, I go by he or she, I go by, they or them, this is what I go by. What do you go by? It starts a dialogue.
Yeah.
So asking and not just assuming, I think, is probably the most important thing that anyone can do. Practicing, I mess up all of the time with my, what I want to be called. I'll talk about myself as, being she, because I've lived, 35 years of my life just as she. And so, also when it comes to relationships, I'm a mother to child, and so everybody sort of knows me as a certain person. So in order to correct that type of language, it's been really hard for me to do, and I'm the person going through the transition, so I can only imagine what other people are going through, because they're not here on a daily basis. They're not dealing with the changes on this large spectrum. Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I was curious. So, mother usually is a female term. Now, is there another thing to call you besides Merritt's mother?
It's so difficult to.
That's tricky, huh?
Oh, it's so hard. So when I started the process, I was just dumbfounded by what I could do. I'm obviously don't want to be. I'm not a father. I'm not
Yeah.
a mother. I am a parent, but
Okay.
nobody says that. Everybody's like, oh,
It
it's
sounds
Mother's
formal.
Day, it's
Yeah.
Father's Day. Yeah. With Merritt, she calls me Rennie, which is short for parent, and I like that. Although I I kind of just feel like mother is something that it makes sense to her, so I allow it, allow her to call me that, and
Mhm.
I refer to myself as mother. But I don't think there's a better term that I have
Okay.
for what exactly I would fit myself into.
And this could
But
be
yeah.
different for each person that's going
Oh,
through the similar situation.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's Everybody has a different experience. That's one of the other things that I think comes up a lot, is that people tend to think that a transgender person has the same story, has the same pathway to lead to where they're at now, and that is completely false. It's
Yeah.
we all got here a different way. We all are doing different things, and so to pigeonhole us into one way or another is
Which
pretty
is
pretty
so
difficult.
hard because you're right. Our society is really into putting people in boxes, yes or no, black or white, or, like they
Yeah.
want you to fill in like your pronouns on a
I
census.
mean, absolutely. I mean, it's super hard.
Spectrum. Yeah.
And yeah, and gender is a spectrum, and I think that the more we get into that, the better off we'll be. I had a colleague who, so she really, really believes that gender on your driver's license is like an old fashioned at this point. It shouldn't be there, because when has a cop ever really needed you to explain, when they pull you over for a ticket, if
Mhm.
you're female or male? And I remember when she first brought that up, I was like, oh my God, that's so
There's
interesting.
so
Like,
many little facets of this. Yeah.
yeah, every little thing leads back to gender. Gender reveal party.
Yep.
Are you going to have pink or are you going to have blue on your walls? When I talk to my kid, she has these little dollies, and she'll tell me, it's this is my little, like, this is a little girl, and I'm like, oh, how did you figure that out? And
Yeah.
and and it's so interesting because it starts so early and it's just it touches every single space,
Yeah.
from restrooms to everything. And so it's just very strange to sort of be in this gray area of, no, it's not one or the other. And as a lawyer, that's really, I think, also very hard, because we love things to be one way or the other,
Yeah. Yeah. The law is interpreted a certain way.
Yeah.
It goes back
Yes.
to your training, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm 100% a person who loves things to be categorized and loves things to be,
Yeah.
defined and whatever. And so this has just been a really interesting, situation, because I'm just like, oh no, all that doesn't work here. And it's just super interesting. And I catch myself all the time doing things that dictate a gender, and then thinking, oh my God, I'm a culprit. I'm doing this and I'm in it. And so, how difficult this must be for the rest of the world to sort of catch up.
Now, that's another question I had for you. So, what if I make a mistake and I call someone by the wrong pronoun, or if I make a mistake in doing something, in communicating with somebody who is transgender or transitioning or non-binary? How do I fix that mistake?
Yeah, I mean, mistakes happen. I make mistakes for myself. I make mistakes for other people that I know, that are transgender. You have to own it. If you make a mistake, it's the same thing with calling somebody. If Jessica, I was like, well, Jamie, and I called you by the wrong name, I would say, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. I got the wrong name. Jessica, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of sort of owning the fact that you are human, and that everyone has the ability to make a mistake, and that you're willing to try and fix that mistake, instead of continuously calling somebody he, who does not want to
Or
be referred to as he, or
or getting
she.
upset because you made a mistake. So
Yeah,
you're
just
saying don't get upset about making the mistake, just fix it, apologize, and move forward.
Yeah, and I don't. So I get this a lot. I get people will say, "All right, sir, what do you? You're next," and then they'll realize that there's this wash that goes over their face where they're like, oh, "I've made this mortal error," and the thing is you haven't, right? You are a person who's been taught since your birth that there are boys and there are girls,
Yeah.
and that's it. And so to fault you for having to retrain your brain, it's just doesn't help anything, right?
Yeah.
All a person who is non-binary or transgender can do is be patient and wait for the world to sort of catch up to where we're at. And I think that's happening at a good rate, but it's also just
Yeah.
very, very slow progress. One of the other things I wanted to say is there is a super famous, well, I call her super famous because she's one of my people that I really like, judge in Alameda County, Judge Kolakowski. And she transitioned. She was born male at birth, assigned male at birth, and in, I believe, law school, transitioned to become Victoria Kolakowski. She is absolutely wonderful. She's one of the first people on the bench that is transgender or identifies as transgender. And so things like that are just really exciting to see, just the progress that we're making, seeing people in positions of power. I don't know if you saw, but today it looks like Biden picked a transgender woman as the assistant health secretary. And
Nice.
Dr. Rachel Levine, she'll be the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Hopefully everything goes well. These things are really, really exciting. And so the more and more there's visibility, the better. One of the other things that sort of, was interesting while I was starting this process was a judge in the county actually came to me and said, my son is transgender, and I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, let's talk about it. And so the more open that people can be with their lack of knowledge or their quest for education is always going to, and that's in everything, right? I don't know everything about every culture. I don't know everything about every gender. I don't know everything about anything, right?
Yeah.
We all are students of life, I guess. And so to sort of be humble and accept that, sometimes you have to ask for help is really the only thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is really my favorite thing to share with people is just, just allow yourself to be humbled by the process and don't assume anything.
No, that's really good. And your daughter is getting this wonderful education by having two moms, or a mom and a Rennie or Remy?
Rennie, Renny. We made it up. I mean,
Yeah.
Who knows if it sticks, right?
Yeah, but that is just a wonderful education. And she'll have this great view of the world. But for other people that haven't had that education from birth, there's places like Gender Spectrum, which is a nonprofit that they do these camps, these education seminars.
Absolutely.
I went to a conference for Gender Spectrum, and it was really, really informative and really interesting. So I'll put that in the show notes, and I'll put, just different educational resources, because I want to we could all be educated more on this topic.
I could still be educated more. Yeah. And one of my favorite organizations, just, if there's any legal issues that you run into, on housing or your professional issues, Transgender Law Center is a fantastic resource. They are in the city in San Francisco, and they're also in Oakland. And another one of my favorite, and I'm totally going to hijack this conversation right now. Another one of my favorite organizations is the Point Foundation, and they are a nonprofit that helps people that identify as LGBTQ get into higher education, which I think is so important because, like I said, visibility is maybe the biggest issue. And so they have people apply to the program, and then they give them mentors that are in either the same area of expertise or similar. And then you kind of follow them through their process of graduate school or law school or whatever. And you just check in on them and make sure that they're not having any depression or any issues with their fellow students or what have you. And so I really love them too, because they are ushering in a new sort of generation of educated and empathetic and just diverse people in the professional realm. And so I think that's super important. So I really love them. They're in Los Angeles.
No, those are some great resources. Any other resources for people either to get more education about somebody in their life who's transgender or transitioning, or for transgender people themselves that you can think of?
Well, like I said, there are so many places. There's the Equal Rights Campaign, there's HRC, Human Rights. There's a lot of places online that you can find resources, pamphlets, Q&As, all of those good things. Additionally, I'm always happy to reach out and speak to anybody that has any questions or concerns or is thinking, hey, there's this, I've been thinking about this since childhood, and I've always been too scared to take the step, which is 100%, where I was 2 years ago. And so I'm always happy to chat with people. In this county, I have a friend who is a therapist, and he and I go out and do like educational sort of hour-long, spiels about what it means to be transgender and how you can be an ally and all that good stuff. So there are things in each county and in each state. Obviously, California, we are very lucky to be here. So lucky. If you're in a state that's not as lucky as California, obviously, it's important to sort of reach out to the resources that are going to be supportive of you. And that might be in a different state, or it might be, if you're in a different country also. So. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and the resources that you found. And you're just a wealth of information. I really enjoyed talking to you. Now, is there anything that you think we may not have touched on that you wanted to make sure to mention?
I think that we have sort of touched on it, but I just want to, make it clear, obviously, that, there's a lot of discrimination, violence towards people who identify as transgender. I think there were, over 300 murders, last year worldwide, probably more, considering that I don't think they're accurate stats. But So it's just super important to, if you don't understand something, to, try and educate yourself, even if you don't understand it. It's important just to have that empathy that we talked about earlier, of just everyone's process. And that's universal, right? Everybody should be empathetic of other people's struggles. And that's really all I have.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Summer. It was a pleasure speaking to you. You've been listening to Catalyst for Change, and my name is Jessica Huckabee, your host. Join us next week for another story of resiliency. And please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and feel free to leave me a comment or email me at catalystforchange20@gmail.com, or on Facebook, we have a page at Catalyst for Change Resiliency.